Bear cub fell from a tree. The toddler who caught him changed the story forever. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Every bit of your support helps us create even more amazing stories for you. The morning sun painted golden streaks through the pine trees as Savannah Reed stepped onto her cabin porch, coffee cup warming her hands. The air smelled fresh after last night's rain. Her 2-year-old son, Ethan, played on a checkered blanket under the big oak tree, his blonde curls catching the sunlight as he stacked colored blocks. Just another quiet morning in their little piece of mountain paradise. "Stay where Mommy can see you, sweetie," Savannah called, smiling as Ethan looked up with those big blue eyes and waved. She needed to grab his sippy cup from inside. Just a quick 30 seconds. What could happen in 30 seconds? Ethan watched a butterfly dance through the air, its wings flapping like tiny hands waving hello. He giggled and pointed, wanting to show his mommy, but she had already gone inside. His attention quickly shifted to something moving in the big tree above him. Something furry and small. High in the branches, a bear cub no bigger than a puppy climbed clumsily from branch to branch. His mother had left him sleeping while she searched for food, but curiosity had pulled him up the tree, drawn by the colorful toys on the ground below. The cub stretched his little paw toward a swaying branch. It was too thin to hold his weight. The wood creaked, cracked. The sound echoed through the clearing like a gunshot. Ethan looked up just as the small bear tumbled through the air. Without thinking, without fear, he opened his little arms. The cub fell straight into his lap, a bundle of brown fur and scared whimpers. Savannah heard the crack from inside. Her heart jumped into her throat as she rushed back outside, sippy cup forgotten on the counter. She froze on the porch steps, unable to believe what she saw. Her toddler sat cross-legged on the blanket, cradling what looked like a teddy bear. But teddy bears don't move. Teddy bears don't whimper. "Ethan," she whispered, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. "Ethan, honey, don't move." But Ethan wasn't scared. He looked at the trembling cub with wonder in his eyes, the same way he looked at stray kittens and butterflies and raindrops on leaves. He gently patted the cub's head, like his mommy did when he cried. "It's okay," he said in his little voice. "You fell down. I fell down yesterday too." The cub stopped trembling for a moment and looked at Ethan with shiny black eyes. Something passed between them, something Savannah couldn't understand. Something pure and simple and true. Then the bushes at the edge of the clearing rustled. Birds scattered from the trees. A deep huffing sound broke the morning quiet. The mother bear had returned. Savannah's body turned to ice. Her mind raced through everything she knew about bear encounters: play dead, fight back, climb a tree. But none of those rules applied when your baby was sitting 10 yards away with a bear cub in his lap. The massive mother bear stood on her hind legs, 7 feet of muscle and fur and wild protective instinct. Her nose twitched as she caught their scent. "Ethan," Savannah whispered, her voice barely audible even to herself. "Don't move, baby. Please don't move." But Ethan was too fascinated by his new friend to notice the danger. He continued to stroke the cub's fur, whispering nonsense words of comfort. The cub made a small chirping sound, almost like a question. From the other side of the clearing, the mother bear dropped to all fours and took a step forward. Then another. Her eyes never left her cub or the small human holding him. Michael Hayes had been hiking the mountain trail since dawn, his camera ready to capture the morning wildlife. After 20 years as a wildlife photographer, he knew these woods better than his own apartment in the city. He'd followed this particular mother bear and her cub for 3 days, keeping a safe distance, documenting their movements for a magazine feature. He never interfered with nature. It was his first rule. But what he saw now made him break into a run. Through his zoom lens, he'd watched the cub fall. He'd seen the impossible moment when the toddler caught the frightened animal. And now he saw the mother bear approaching them both. He knew what would happen next if he didn't act. Michael's boots pounded against the dirt as he raced through the trees. He had to reach them before the bear did. He had to save that child. But as he burst into the clearing, weaponless and breathless, he realized he was too late. The mother bear stood less than 3 feet from Ethan and her cub. "Don't run!" Michael shouted to Savannah, who was now inching down the porch steps. "Stay absolutely still." Savannah froze again, tears streaming down her face. She was too far from Ethan to reach him before the bear. All she could do was watch as the massive animal leaned down toward her son. What happened next would change all their lives forever. Instead of attacking, the mother bear gently nudged her nose against her cub, sniffing him carefully. The cub chirped again, still nestled in Ethan's lap. Ethan, with the fearlessness only a toddler could possess, reached out his tiny hand and patted the mother bear's nose. "Nice bear," he said clearly. "Your baby fell. I catched him." The mother bear huffed softly. She could have swatted both the human child and her cub with one paw. She could have opened her mouth and shown teeth that could tear through flesh and bone. Instead, she sat back on her haunches watching. Michael couldn't believe what he was seeing. In 15 years of wildlife photography, he had never witnessed anything like this. His camera hung forgotten around his neck as he stood at the edge of the clearing, afraid that any movement might break the spell of this impossible moment. "What's happening?" Savannah whispered to Michael, not daring to raise her voice. "I don't know," he answered truthfully. "But whatever you do, don't move yet." Logan Carter had been tracking the bear too, but for different reasons. As the local park ranger, he'd received reports of a mother bear getting too comfortable around human settlements. His job was to tranquilize and relocate her before someone got hurt. He'd parked his truck half a mile away and hiked in quietly, tranquilizer gun ready. When he heard Michael shout, he quickened his pace. Logan burst into the clearing just as the mother bear leaned down once more toward Ethan. Without hesitation, he raised his tranquilizer gun. "No!" Michael lunged forward, knocking Logan's arm up. The dart sailed harmlessly into the trees. "Look!" The bear wasn't attacking. She was using her teeth, not to bite, but to gently lift her cub by the scruff of the neck. As they all watched in stunned silence, she carefully pulled her baby from Ethan's lap. The cub squirmed and made a mournful sound, reaching one paw back toward Ethan as his mother set him down on the ground. Ethan mirrored the gesture, his small hand opening and closing in a wave. "Bye-bye, bear," he said sadly. Something remarkable passed between the toddler and the animals, a connection none of the adults could fully understand. The mother bear huffed again, nudging her cub toward the forest. But instead of immediately retreating, she did something that would haunt their memories forever. She looked directly at Savannah. Their eyes met across the yard, mother to mother, and the bear dipped her massive head in what looked impossibly like a nod of acknowledgement. A thank you. Then she turned, cub following close behind, and disappeared into the trees. For several heartbeats, no one moved. Then Savannah ran forward, scooping Ethan into her arms, holding him so tightly he squirmed. "Mommy, you're squishing me," he complained, still watching the spot where the bears had vanished. "I know, baby, I'm sorry." She couldn't stop the tears that flowed freely now. "I'm just so happy you're okay." Michael finally remembered his camera and cursed himself for missing the photo opportunity of a lifetime. But some things were more important than pictures. He approached Savannah and Ethan slowly. He struggled to find the right words. I've never seen anything like that before. Logan stood frozen, tranquilizer gun hanging limply at his side. In 12 years as a ranger, I've never... He shook his head in disbelief. That bear should have attacked. Any mother would have attacked to protect her cub. Not if she knew her cub wasn't in danger, Savannah said quietly, stroking Ethan's curls. Somehow, she knew. Bear sad, Ethan said, pointing to the forest. Baby bear, too little for big tree. Michael knelt down to Ethan's level. You're right, buddy, and you helped that baby bear, didn't you? Ethan nodded solemnly. I catched him. You certainly did. Michael smiled, then turned to Savannah. I'm Michael, by the way, Michael Hayes. I've been photographing that bear family for my magazine. Savannah Reed, she replied, still clutching Ethan protectively. And this is my son, Ethan. Logan Carter, Park Ranger. Logan introduced himself, finally lowering his tranquilizer gun completely. I came to relocate those bears. They've been getting too close to human areas lately, but now... He trailed off, looking thoughtfully at the forest. Now what? Savannah asked. Logan sighed. I don't know. What we just witnessed was extraordinary. If I hadn't seen it myself, I wouldn't have believed it. What none of them realized was that this encounter was only the beginning. The connection formed between Ethan and the bear cub that morning would lead to a chain of events none of them could have predicted, events that would test the boundaries between humans and nature, challenge their understanding of animal intelligence, and ultimately change their small mountain community forever. And hidden in the trees, watching everything through the lens of a high-powered camera, was someone else. Someone who had captured every moment of the incredible encounter. Someone with their own plans for Ethan and the bears. Jessica Brooks lowered her camera and checked the footage she'd captured. Perfect. Every second of the miraculous interaction was recorded in high definition. As the head field researcher for the Interspecies Communication Project at Northwood University, she'd spent 5 years studying the cognitive abilities of black bears. This footage would change everything: her career, her research, and possibly the future of wildlife conservation in these mountains. But she wasn't naive. She knew how the media would twist this story if it got out. A toddler and a bear cub. It would become a viral sensation overnight. Tourism would flood the area. The bears would be harassed by curiosity seekers. The delicate balance of this ecosystem would be threatened. Jessica slipped her camera into her backpack and took a deep breath. She needed to approach these people carefully. What she had to offer them might sound crazy, but after what they'd just witnessed, maybe they'd be willing to listen. That evening, Savannah sat on her porch swing, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders despite the mild temperature. Ethan had finally fallen asleep after hours of excitedly telling and retelling the story of his bear. Each time, the bear got bigger, the fall more dramatic. Typical toddler embellishment. But the core of the story remained unbelievably true. Michael paced the porch, making occasional notes in a small leather journal. He'd accepted Savannah's offer to stay for dinner, partly out of professional curiosity, and partly because he couldn't bring himself to leave this story behind. Logan had reluctantly returned to the ranger station to file a report, though he'd been vague about exactly what he planned to write. I still can't believe what I saw, Michael said, pausing to lean against the porch railing. In my 20 years photographing wildlife, I've documented hundreds of bear encounters. I've seen them fight, mate, play, hunt, but I've never seen anything like what happened today. Savannah nodded, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. Do you think they'll come back? The bears? It's possible. Black bears typically have a territory of about 15 to 30 square miles. If this is part of their regular range, he trailed off, noticing the concern on Savannah's face. But it's unlikely they'd approach the cabin again. Today was an anomaly. Was it, though? A voice called from the darkness beyond the porch light. Michael straightened, instantly alert. Savannah clutched her mug tighter. A woman stepped into the light, her hands raised non-threateningly. "I'm sorry to startle you. My name is Dr. Jessica Brooks. I'm a wildlife researcher from Northwood University." "How did you find us?" Savannah asked, standing up. "I was tracking the same bear family," Jessica explained. "I witnessed everything that happened today." She hesitated, then added, "And I'd like to talk to you about your son." Savannah's protective instincts flared. "What about my son?" "What he did today wasn't just unusual. It was unprecedented," Jessica said, taking a cautious step onto the porch steps. "May I?" She gestured to the space beside Savannah on the swing. After a moment's hesitation, Savannah nodded. Michael watched with interest as Jessica sat down and opened her backpack. "I've been studying bear cognition and interspecies communication for 5 years," Jessica explained, pulling out a tablet. "I've documented cases of bears showing remarkable intelligence, problem-solving abilities, and even empathy. But I've never seen anything approaching the level of trust that Mother Bear showed your son." She turned the tablet toward them, showing footage of the encounter from an angle neither of them had seen, captured from Jessica's hidden position in the trees. "You were spying on us?" Michael asked, professional curiosity mixing with indignation. "Observing the bears," Jessica corrected. "You all happened to become part of my study rather unexpectedly." She swiped to another video. "But look at this." The screen showed footage from 2 weeks earlier. The same mother bear teaching her cub to fish at a stream not far from the cabin. The tenderness with which she guided her baby was startlingly human-like. "This bear is exceptional," Jessica continued. "She shows cognitive abilities well beyond the norm for her species. And somehow, your son connected with her in a way I wouldn't have believed possible if I hadn't recorded it myself." "What exactly are you suggesting?" Savannah asked, her voice tight with a mother's caution. Jessica took a deep breath. "I'd like your permission to set up observation equipment around your property. Nothing invasive, just cameras to document any further interactions. And I'd like to interview you about Ethan. His behaviors, his development, anything unusual you've noticed about him." "You think my son is unusual?" There was an edge to Savannah's voice now. "I think your son may have a gift," Jessica said carefully. "A natural ability to communicate with animals on a level that most humans have lost. And if that's true, studying this could advance our understanding of both animal cognition and human development." Michael watched Savannah's face, seeing the conflict there. "This sounds like you're proposing to turn Ethan into a research subject," he said to Jessica. "Not at all," Jessica insisted. "I'm suggesting a collaborative study that could benefit everyone, including the bears. If we can demonstrate this level of interspecies understanding, it could revolutionize wildlife conservation approaches. It could save these bears from relocation or worse." A heavy silence fell over the porch. Savannah stared out at the dark forest, thinking of the bear's eyes meeting hers. That moment of connection she still couldn't explain. "I need time to think about this," she finally said. "Of course," Jessica nodded, handing Savannah a business card. "Take all the time you need, but—" She hesitated. "I should warn you that I may not be the only one interested in what happened today. Logan has to file a report. Word will spread. If we don't document this properly, on our terms, others will come with their own agendas. As if summoning him with her words, the sound of tires on gravel announced Logan's return. His Ranger truck pulled up beside Savannah's car, and he stepped out looking troubled. "We have a problem," he announced without preamble, climbing the porch steps. He nodded briefly to Jessica before turning to Savannah. "My supervisor is demanding a full incident report. When I mentioned a toddler and a bear cub in the same sentence, he nearly had a heart attack. He's talking about bringing in state wildlife officials, maybe even setting traps." "Traps?" Savannah's voice rose in alarm. "But the bears didn't do anything wrong." "I know that," Logan said grimly. "I was there. But all my supervisor hears is bear and human child, and his liability radar goes crazy." "This is exactly what I was concerned about," Jessica interjected. "Once bureaucracy gets involved, the science gets buried under policy and public relations." Logan noticed the tablet in Jessica's hands, the frozen image of the bear encounter clearly visible. "You have footage?" he asked sharply. Jessica hesitated, then nodded. "I've been studying this bear family for months." "Then you were there the whole time? You saw my son with the bears and didn't help?" Savannah stood up, her eyes flashing. "I was too far away to intervene," Jessica explained quickly. "By the time I realized what was happening, it was already unfolding. And then, well, it became clear intervention wasn't necessary." Logan held out his hand. "I need to see that footage." Jessica clutched the tablet tighter. "This is research material, protected by university protocols." "This is a potential public safety incident," Logan countered. "Stop it, both of you," Michael interrupted. "Fighting over the footage doesn't help anyone right now. What matters is protecting both Ethan and those bears." A small voice from the doorway froze everyone in place. "Bear come back," Ethan said, rubbing his eyes sleepily, his favorite stuffed dinosaur clutched in one arm. Savannah rushed to lift him. "No, sweetie, the bears are gone. They went back to the forest, remember?" Ethan shook his head stubbornly. "Baby bear sad, miss me." He pointed to the dark tree line beyond the yard. "Bear there." 4 pairs of adult eyes followed his pointing finger. In the dim moonlight, just at the edge of visibility, 2 shining eyes reflected back at them. Then another smaller pair beside them. "That's impossible," Logan whispered. "They shouldn't have come back." "Told you," Ethan said simply, wriggling to be put down. "No, Ethan," Savannah held him tighter. "You need to stay inside." But Ethan was already calling out happily. "Bear, bear, come play." Michael reached slowly for the camera hanging around his neck. Jessica was already filming with her tablet. Logan instinctively moved his hand to the holster at his hip. The larger shape, unmistakably the mother bear, took a tentative step into the clearing. Then another. The cub bounded forward with more enthusiasm, but stayed close to its mother. "This defies everything we know about bear behavior," Jessica breathed, her researcher's objectivity momentarily overcome by wonder. "What do we do?" Savannah asked, her arms tight around Ethan, who was now squirming determinedly. Before anyone could answer, headlights swept across the yard as another vehicle approached. The bears immediately retreated back into the shadows. "Who now?" Michael muttered. A sleek black SUV with government plates pulled up next to Logan's truck. The driver's door opened, and a tall man in a dark suit stepped out, followed by a woman similarly dressed. Even in the dim light, their official demeanor was unmistakable. "Mr. Jacob Bennett, Department of Fish and Wildlife," the man announced, flashing a badge as he approached the porch. "We received a report of an unusual bear incident involving a child. We'll need statements from everyone present." Logan stepped forward. I just filed that report an hour ago. How did you get here so quickly? The woman smiled blandly. We happened to be in the area for another matter. Fortunate timing. Something about their arrival sent a chill through Savannah that had nothing to do with the night air. She held Ethan closer. And who might this young man be? Jacob Bennett asked, his eyes fixing on Ethan with an intensity that made Savannah's protective instincts flare. My son, she said simply, who's very tired and needs to go back to bed. Actually, Bennett said, his smile not reaching his eyes, we'd like to ask him a few questions, too. He's 2 years old, Savannah retorted, and it's well past his bedtime. I understand your concern, Ms. Reed, Savannah Reed. Ms. Reed, but I assure you this is a matter of public safety and wildlife management. We have protocols that must be followed when incidents involving potentially dangerous wildlife and minors occur. Michael stepped forward. I think all of this can wait until morning, don't you? The incident is over, the bears are gone, and everyone is safe. Bennett's gaze shifted to Michael, then to Jessica and her tablet. And you are? Michael Hayes, wildlife photographer, Michael answered. And this is Dr. Jessica Brooks, a researcher from Northwood University. I see. Bennett's eyes narrowed slightly at Jessica's tablet. Dr. Brooks, do you have documentation of this incident? Jessica hesitated, her researcher's instinct for protecting data warring with the uncomfortable official pressure. I have some preliminary observational footage that's part of an ongoing university study. It's protected research material. Bennett smiled thinly. I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to share that footage with us. National wildlife management protocols supersede university research protections when public safety is concerned. A tense silence fell over the porch. Savannah could feel Ethan growing heavy in her arms as he drifted back toward sleep, oblivious to the adult concerns swirling around him. In the forest beyond, the bears had vanished completely. None of them noticed the small drone hovering silently above the trees, its camera trained on the gathering. None of them knew that the footage was being streamed live to a secure server thousands of miles away, where another set of interested parties watched the scene unfold with growing interest. Savannah made a decision. It's late. My son needs sleep. Whatever official business you have can wait until morning. Her voice was firm as she turned toward the door. You're all welcome to return at a reasonable hour. Bennett took a step forward. Ms. Reed. Let her put the kid to bed, the female agent interrupted quietly. We have all night. Bennett paused, then nodded curtly. Very well. But no one leaves this property until we've conducted our interviews and collected all relevant evidence. As Savannah carried Ethan inside, she caught Michael and Jessica exchanging concerned glances. Logan looked troubled as he stared at the government agents. Something wasn't right about their sudden appearance or their intense interest. What had started as a miraculous moment between a child and a wild creature was rapidly becoming something much more complicated and potentially dangerous. Inside Ethan's small bedroom, Savannah tucked him under his dinosaur-patterned comforter. His eyes were already fluttering closed. Mommy, he murmured sleepily. The bear has a name. Savannah froze. What do you mean, sweetie? Baby Bear told me, Ethan said, his voice trailing off as sleep claimed him. His name is Spirit. Savannah sat in the darkness beside her son's bed, her mind racing. Outside, officials gathered. In the forest, bears returned against all natural instinct, and her 2-year-old son claimed to know the cub's name. Nothing would ever be the same after today. She just hoped she could protect Ethan from whatever was coming next. Dawn broke with thin fingers of light stretching across the sky. Savannah hadn't slept. After tucking Ethan in, she'd returned to the porch to find Michael and Jessica in a heated, whispered argument with the government agents. Logan had positioned himself as an uncomfortable mediator, his ranger duties clashing with his instincts about what he'd witnessed earlier. "I'm telling you, these aren't ordinary bears," Jessica insisted, keeping her voice low. "What happened today indicates cognitive abilities and interspecies empathy that could revolutionize our understanding of animal intelligence. And I'm telling you, Dr. Brooks, that a bear approaching a human child is a public safety concern, regardless of the perceived gentleness of the interaction," Jacob Bennett countered, his voice equally controlled but laced with authority. "The bears are gone now anyway," Logan interjected. "We can resume this discussion in the morning." Bennett's partner, who had introduced herself only as Agent Lily Morgan, smiled thinly. "We'll be setting up a perimeter around the property at first light. Standard protocol." "Standard protocol for what exactly?" Michael asked, his photographer's eye noticing how Agent Morgan kept glancing toward the forest edge. "This isn't a crime scene. Wildlife management is our jurisdiction, Mr. Hayes," Bennett replied smoothly, "particularly when it involves potentially endangered species and public safety concerns." Savannah had listened from the doorway, then quietly slipped back inside to check on Ethan. She spent the night sitting in a chair by his window, watching both her son and the dark forest beyond. Sometime before dawn, she thought she saw movement at the tree line, a shadow larger than it should be, moving with deliberate grace. But exhaustion might have been playing tricks on her eyes. Now, as the first true light of morning filled Ethan's room, Savannah gently shook her son awake. "Good morning, sweetie. Time to get up?" Ethan's eyes opened immediately, unusually alert for a toddler just waking. "Is Baby Bear still here?" Savannah hesitated. "No, honey, the bears went back to the forest where they belong." Ethan shook his head with the certainty only children possess. "Spirit is still here. He's hiding." That name again. Spirit. A chill ran down Savannah's spine, despite the warm morning air. "Ethan, how do you know the bear's name?" "He told me," Ethan said simply, climbing out of bed and pulling on the t-shirt Savannah held out for him. "In my head, like when you tell me to be careful, but your mouth doesn't move." Savannah froze. She'd read about the intuitive connection between mothers and their children, how sometimes her own thoughts seemed to transfer to Ethan without words. But this was different. This was a wild animal. "Ethan, bears can't talk to people," she said gently. "Spirit can," Ethan insisted, his chubby face serious. "And his mommy, too, but she's more quiet." He paused, his head tilting, as if listening to something Savannah couldn't hear. "They're scared of the bad people." "What bad people, sweetie?" "The ones who want to take Spirit away." Ethan pointed toward the front of the house, where Savannah knew the government agents were likely already setting up their perimeter. Before Savannah could question him further, a knock sounded at the front door. She picked Ethan up and carried him to the kitchen, settling him with some cereal before answering. Michael stood on the porch, looking like he hadn't slept either. "They're setting up cameras," he said without preamble, "all around the property line, and they've brought in tracking dogs." "Tracking dogs? For what?" Savannah stepped outside, pulling the door mostly closed behind her. "Officially? To locate the bears for monitoring purposes." Michael made air quotes with his fingers. "But I've covered enough government operations to know when there's more happening than what's being said." "Where's Jessica?" "Out in the woods with her own equipment. She's trying to get to the bears first, I think. She and Logan had a pretty intense conversation at sunrise, and then she took off." Logan went back to the ranger station to make some calls. Savannah hugged herself against the morning chill. Michael, there's something else. Something about Ethan. She told him about the bear's name, and Ethan's claim that the bears were communicating with him. Michael's expression grew increasingly troubled. Last night, after you went inside, Jessica showed us more footage from her research, he said quietly. This particular mother bear has been exhibiting unusual behaviors for months, solving complex problems, showing signs of advanced reasoning. Jessica believes she might represent an evolutionary leap in bear cognition. And now she's formed some kind of connection with my son? Savannah fought to keep her voice steady. That's not possible. After what we all saw yesterday. Michael let the thought hang unfinished. The sound of a vehicle approaching drew their attention. A white van with a university logo pulled up beside the government vehicles. A tall man with a salt and pepper beard stepped out, carrying a case of scientific equipment. Dr. Connor Adams, he introduced himself as he approached the porch. Neurobiologist from Northwood University. Jessica called me last night. He looked between Michael and Savannah. I understand you've had a rather extraordinary bear encounter. Before either could respond, the front door opened wider and Ethan appeared, his face brightening. The bear doctor, he exclaimed happily. Connor froze mid-step, staring at Ethan with undisguised fascination. Remarkable, he murmured. And how do you know I study bears, young man? Spirit told me you helped his cousin when he was sick, Ethan said, coming to stand beside his mother. The adults exchanged glances. Connor recovered first, kneeling to Ethan's level. Did Spirit tell you anything else about me? Ethan considered this seriously. You have a picture of him in your special book, from when he was really little. Connor paled slightly. He stood and addressed Savannah in a hushed tone. Miss Reed, I've been studying black bear populations in these mountains for 15 years. 3 years ago, I rehabilitated an orphaned cub after its mother was killed by poachers. I documented the process extensively in my research journal, my special book, as your son called it. I have photos of that cub from its earliest days with us. And you think that cub is related to our bears? Michael asked. It's possible, Connor nodded. Bears often maintain extended family groups within territories, but that doesn't explain how your son would know any of this. A shout from the forest edge interrupted them. One of Bennett's agents was waving urgently toward something in the trees. Jacob Bennett and Lily Morgan immediately headed in that direction, followed by 2 men carrying what looked like tranquilizer rifles. They found something, Michael said, reaching for his camera. Ethan, stay here with Dr. Adams, Savannah instructed, then turned to Connor. Please, don't let him follow us. Connor nodded. Of course. Savannah and Michael jogged toward the commotion at the edge of the forest. As they approached, they saw what had caused the excitement. Large, fresh bear prints leading directly toward the cabin, then circling around it before returning to the forest. Those weren't there last night, Lily Morgan was saying, crouching to examine the prints. The bears returned after we arrived, Bennett concluded. Interesting. He turned to his team. Set up thermal imaging. I want to know exactly where they are. You can't just hunt them down, Savannah protested. They haven't done anything wrong. Bennett regarded her coldly. Miss Reed, I understand your concern, but these are wild animals that have shown unusual interest in human habitation, specifically in your child. The standard protocol is clear. To hell with your protocol, Michael interjected. What we witnessed yesterday wasn't a bear showing interest in a human. It was an intelligent interaction between species. Your own department should be fascinated by the scientific implications, not treating it like a threat. My department has many interests, Mr. Hayes, Bennett replied cryptically. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have work to do. As Bennett turned away, Logan's Ranger truck came bouncing up the dirt road, kicking up dust. He parked haphazardly and strode toward them, his face set in grim lines. "Bennett," he called, "we need to talk." Bennett sighed. "Ranger Carter, I've already explained that this operation falls under federal jurisdiction." "Yeah, about that." Logan pulled out his phone. "I made some calls. The regional director of Fish and Wildlife has no record of agents being dispatched to this location. In fact, he was quite surprised to hear about it." A tense silence fell over the group. Bennett and Morgan exchanged a glance. "Our operation is classified," Bennett finally said, "above regional level." "Bullshit," Logan said flatly. "I've worked with Fish and Wildlife for a decade. There's no such thing as operations above regional level that regional directors aren't briefed on, so either you show me proper authorization right now, or I'm ordering you off this property." Bennett's hand moved slightly toward his jacket, and for a heart-stopping moment, Savannah thought he might draw a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a different badge, one with an insignia none of them recognized. "Department of Special Wildlife Operations," he said, his entire demeanor shifting to something colder and more efficient. "A division you won't find in any public records, Ranger Carter. We handle unique situations." "What kind of unique situations?" Michael demanded. Agent Morgan answered, her professional facade also dropping. "Anomalous wildlife behaviors. Instances of unusual intelligence or abilities in animal populations. Cases that might have broader implications for national security or scientific advancement." "You're telling me there's a secret government agency dedicated to super smart animals?" Logan asked incredulously. "I'm telling you to stand down," Bennett replied. "This is now a classified operation. All of you will be required to sign non-disclosure agreements. The bears will be relocated to a secure facility for study." "The hell they will," came Jessica's voice as she emerged from the trees to their right. She was breathing hard, as if she'd been running. "Those bears aren't your laboratory specimens." "Dr. Brooks," Bennett acknowledged her with a tight nod. "I was wondering when you'd rejoin us. Your university collaboration with our department has been valuable, but I'm afraid in this case you're overstepping." The revelation hit Savannah like ice water. "You two know each other?" Jessica flushed. "Not exactly. My research grant comes partially from a government initiative. I didn't know it was connected to whatever this is." "We fund many wildlife studies, Dr. Brooks," Morgan said smoothly. "Only the most promising receive our personal attention." A child's scream cut through the tense standoff. Savannah's blood turned to ice as she whirled toward the cabin. "Ethan!" she cried, already running. The others followed close behind, Bennett and Morgan drawing actual weapons now as they sprinted across the clearing. When they reached the porch, they found Connor Adams standing perfectly still, his face pale with shock. "He was just here," Connor said. "We were talking about the bears, and he said he heard Spirit calling him. Before I could stop him, he ran inside. I followed, but—" He gestured helplessly toward the open back door of the cabin. Savannah pushed past him, running through the kitchen and out the back door. The yard behind the cabin was empty, but the gate in the fence stood open, swinging slightly in the breeze. Beyond it, the dense forest waited, dark and secretive even in the morning light. "Ethan!" she screamed, her voice echoing through the trees. "Ethan, come back!" Michael reached her side, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. "We'll find him," he promised. "He can't have gone far." Bennett was already organizing his team. "Morgan, get the thermal imaging online. Team 2, deploy the drones. I want a 5-mile perimeter secured immediately." He turned to Savannah, his official mask completely gone now. "Miss Reed, I need you to understand the gravity of the situation. Your son appears to have formed a telepathic connection with an anomalous wildlife specimen. This is unprecedented." "I don't care about your anomalous specimens," Savannah spat. "I care about finding my son." "That's what I'm trying to do," Bennett insisted. "But you need to be prepared for what we might find. If the bears have lured him into the forest—" "Lured him?" Jessica interrupted. "You're talking about them like they're predators with some sinister agenda." "We don't know what their agenda is," Morgan interjected. "That's the point. We've been tracking unusual cognitive developments in wildlife for decades. This bear family represents the most advanced case we've ever encountered. And now they've established contact with a human child who seems receptive to their communication." Logan stepped forward. "I know these woods better than anyone. Let me organize the search." "Fine," Bennett nodded, "but my team goes with you." As the others prepared for the search, Savannah stood at the edge of the forest, terror and a strange, inexplicable hope warring within her. She remembered the mother bear's eyes meeting hers, that moment of connection, of understanding. "She won't hurt him," Savannah whispered to herself. "She knows he saved her baby." Michael overheard her. "I believe that too," he said quietly. "But we still need to find him." Connor approached them, carrying a small device from his equipment case. "This might help," he said. "It's an ultrasonic tracker. I use it to follow my research subjects without disturbing them." He handed Savannah a small receiver. "The bears in this region know the sound it makes. They're conditioned to associate it with me, with safety and food. If the mother bear's with Ethan, this might draw them back." Savannah took the device, hope flaring. "Thank you." As search teams spread out into the forest, none of them noticed the small drone that had followed Ethan's path, hovering silently above the trees. None of them were aware of the figures gathered around screens in a distant location, watching every development with intense interest. "Subject E has made contact," one technician reported clinically. "Neural synchronization patterns are stronger than anticipated." "And the mother?" a voice asked from the shadows. Increasing concern, as expected, but also showing signs of the intuitive connection we've been monitoring. The bonds are forming exactly as predicted. "Excellent," the shadowed figure replied. "Continue observation protocol. Let's see how far this natural experiment takes us before we need to intervene." On one of their screens, thermal imaging showed a small human figure moving through the forest, followed closely by 2 larger heat signatures. The child wasn't running in fear. He was walking purposefully, occasionally reaching up to hold what appeared to be a large paw. Back in the forest, Ethan followed Spirit and his mother deeper into the trees. He wasn't afraid. In his mind, he could hear Spirit's thoughts. Not as words exactly, but as feelings and pictures and gentle nudges of understanding. "Where are we going?" Ethan asked aloud, his small voice nearly lost among the sounds of the forest. The mother bear huffed softly, and in Ethan's mind came an impression of a cave, of safety, of hiding from the bad people with their loud machines and sharp smells. "Mommy will be scared," Ethan said, suddenly uncertain. Spirit nudged his hand with his nose, and Ethan understood. His mommy would follow. She was connected too, just not as strongly. The mother bear had sensed it yesterday, a thread of understanding between 2 mothers, a shared instinct to protect their young. The bears were taking him somewhere important, somewhere the bad people couldn't find them, somewhere they would all be safe until the grown-ups understood what Spirit and his mother were trying to tell them. Something was coming, something that would change everything. And somehow, Ethan was the key to it all. The search party split into 3 teams. Logan led one group north along the stream. Bennett and his operatives took the eastern ridge, while Savannah insisted on following the faint trail of broken twigs and small footprints that led deeper into the western woods. Michael and Jessica stayed with her, Connor's ultrasonic device in hand. "He can't have gone far on those little legs," Michael said, trying to sound reassuring as they pushed through a thicket of mountain laurel. "Even with the bears helping him. That's what worries me," Jessica replied, carefully examining a patch of disturbed earth. "These prints show they're moving with purpose, not wandering. The mother bear is deliberately taking him somewhere." Savannah's throat tightened. "But why? Why would they take my son?" Jessica hesitated before answering. "In all my research on interspecies communication, I've documented cases where animals seem to recognize when a human has a special ability to understand them. It's like they've found a translator, a bridge between our worlds." She met Savannah's eyes. "Whatever is happening between Ethan and these bears, it's something profound." "I don't care how profound it is," Savannah said, her voice breaking. "I just want my baby back." They pushed on, the forest growing denser around them. The morning sun barely penetrated the thick canopy overhead, leaving them in a perpetual green twilight. Connor's device emitted occasional soft pulses, but so far had drawn no response. After another hour of searching, they reached a small clearing where a massive fallen oak created a natural bridge across a ravine. Savannah stopped abruptly, her hand going to her chest. "What is it?" Michael asked. "I don't know," she whispered. "I just felt something. Like Ethan is close." She closed her eyes. "It's the strangest feeling, like when you know your child is about to cry before they make a sound." Jessica and Michael exchanged glances. "The maternal bond," Jessica murmured. "It might be amplified by whatever connection the bears have established." Savannah opened her eyes and looked directly across the ravine. "He's over there. I know it." Without waiting for the others, she climbed onto the fallen tree and began making her way across the ravine. The drop below wasn't fatal, perhaps 30 feet to a rocky streambed, but it would certainly be dangerous. Michael followed close behind her, one hand ready to steady her if needed. On the other side, the forest changed character. The trees were older here, massive trunks spiraling upward like ancient columns. Moss carpeted the ground, muffling their footsteps, and there was something else, a stillness that felt almost reverent. "We're entering old-growth forest," Jessica explained softly. "Some of these trees might be over 300 years old. There aren't many patches like this left in these mountains." Savannah barely heard her. She was following something invisible now, a thread of connection that pulled her forward as surely as if Ethan were calling her name. The others fell silent, sensing the importance of this moment. A large boulder came into view, and beside it, a dark opening in the hillside, a cave entrance partially hidden by hanging vines. Savannah stopped, the pull almost painful now. "He's in there," she said with absolute certainty. "A bear den," Jessica confirmed, examining claw marks on a nearby tree. "This is unusual, though. Black bears don't typically use large caves like this. They prefer hollow trees or dense thickets for denning." Michael quietly readied his camera, more out of habit than any intention to document what they might find. "Should we call the others?" Savannah shook her head. "Not Bennett and his people? Not yet." She took a deep breath and called out, "Ethan? Sweetie, it's Mommy. Are you in there?" For a long moment, silence answered her. Then came a sound that brought the tears of relief to her eyes. Ethan's giggle echoing from the cave. "Mommy, come see. Spirit showed me the pictures." Savannah moved toward the cave entrance, but Jessica gently caught her arm. "Let me check first," she whispered, "just to be safe." Reluctantly, Savannah nodded. Jessica approached the cave entrance slowly, making soft, non-threatening sounds, the techniques she developed over years of bear research. She peered into the darkness, then turned back with an expression of wonder. "It's okay," she said. "They're waiting for us." The three adults entered the cave together, Savannah leading now, her need to reach her son overriding any fear. Just inside, where sunlight still filtered through the entrance, Ethan sat cross-legged on the sandy floor. Beside him, the bear cub, Spirit, was curled up like an oversized puppy. Against the far wall, the mother bear watched them with alert eyes but made no threatening moves. "Ethan!" Savannah rushed forward, then slowed as the mother bear shifted slightly. She approached more carefully and knelt beside her son, pulling him into a tight embrace. "You scared me so much, baby. You can't run away like that." "I didn't run away," Ethan protested, wiggling in her grip. "Spirit needed to show me something." He pointed deeper into the cave. The pictures on the wall tell a story. For the first time, the adults noticed that the cave extended farther back, a narrow passage leading to what appeared to be a larger chamber. From where they stood, they could see flickering shadows cast by some light source beyond. "What pictures, sweetie?" Savannah asked, not loosening her hold on him. "The old ones, from a long time ago. Spirit's great-great-great-grandma showed them to the people before. But they forgot." Ethan's face was solemn beyond his years. "We're not supposed to forget again." Michael had been keeping a cautious eye on the mother bear, but now he looked toward the passage with professional curiosity. Indigenous cave paintings, maybe? This region has historical settlements dating back thousands of years. Jessica shook her head. "There's no record of cave paintings in this area. The Cherokee who lived here didn't have that tradition." The mother bear suddenly rose to her feet, causing all three adults to freeze. But instead of approaching them, she moved to the passage entrance and looked back, as if expecting them to follow. "She wants to show us," Ethan said simply, taking his mother's hand. "It's important." Savannah looked from her son to the bear, then to her companions. "This is insane," she whispered. "Completely," Michael agreed, adjusting his camera. "But after everything we've seen already, are we really going to stop now?" With deep misgivings but deeper curiosity, they followed the mother bear down the passage, using the lights on their phones to illuminate the way. Ethan walked confidently, one hand in his mother's, occasionally reaching out to touch a spirit, who bounded alongside them. The passage opened into a large chamber with a high ceiling. Natural light spilled in from a narrow fissure above, creating a spotlight effect on the far wall. And there, illuminated by that shaft of sunlight, was something none of them had expected. "My God," Jessica breathed. It wasn't indigenous cave art. The wall was covered with symbols, intricate patterns that resembled nothing so much as mathematical equations and astronomical charts. Interspersed among them were detailed images of animals, humans, and what appeared to be DNA helixes. Some portions seemed to glow faintly with a blue-green luminescence, even when not touched by the sunlight. "What is this place?" Michael asked, his camera forgotten in his hands. Jessica approached the wall slowly, her researcher's mind struggling to process what she was seeing. "These aren't historical. Some of these symbols reference modern science, quantum mechanics, genetic sequencing. She turned back to the others, her face pale. This isn't possible. The mother bear sat on her haunches, watching them calmly as they absorbed the impossibility before them. Spirit scampered to the wall and placed a paw against one of the glowing sections. The blue-green light brightened in response. Spirit says the smart people made these, Ethan announced, to help us remember where we came from and where we're going. What smart people, sweetie? Savannah asked, her voice faint. Ethan pointed upward, not at the ceiling but beyond it. The ones who came from there, a long, long time ago. They changed Spirit's family, made them special. He turned his bright eyes to his mother, and they changed our family too. A cold sensation spread through Savannah's body. Ethan, what do you mean they changed our family? Before he could answer, a new voice echoed from the passage behind them. It means your son carries the activation gene, Ms. Reed, just like you do. They turned to find Jacob Bennett standing in the chamber entrance, his weapon drawn but pointed at the ground. Behind him, Lily Morgan and 2 other agents carried specialized equipment. How did you find us? Michael demanded. Bennett tapped his ear. You've been broadcasting your location since you left the cabin, Mr. Hayes. He gestured to Michael's camera. Standard government tracking chip and all professional-grade wildlife photography equipment. Helps us monitor poaching activity. That's illegal, Michael protested. That's national security, Bennett corrected, stepping further into the chamber. His eyes swept over the marked wall, his expression revealing nothing. Dr. Brooks, I believe your university grant included an agreement to report any findings of this nature immediately to your government sponsors. Jessica stiffened. I had no idea what we would find here. Perhaps not, Bennett conceded. But I think you've suspected for some time that these bears were more than just unusually intelligent mammals. He turned his attention to Savannah and Ethan. And I think Ms. Reed here has experienced things throughout her life that she couldn't quite explain. Moments of unusual connection with animals, dreams that came true, knowing things she shouldn't have known. Savannah instinctively pulled Ethan closer. I don't know what you're talking about. Your medical records suggest otherwise, Agent Morgan said, stepping forward with a tablet. Age 6, reported hearing the neighbor's dog talking to her about a fire before it happened. Age 12, school psychologist noted your uncanny ability to calm agitated animals during a zoo field trip. Age 17, incident at the state park involving a wounded deer that reportedly led you to a lost child. The blood drained from Savannah's face. How do you have my records? We've been monitoring potential activation candidates for generations, Ms. Reed, Bennett replied. Your family line has been of particular interest since your great-grandmother exhibited similar talents during the 1940s government studies. Studies? Michael interrupted. What studies? Bennett ignored him, focusing on Ethan. But your son represents something we've never seen before. A complete activation at such a young age, triggered by contact with another activated species. He gestured toward Spirit and his mother. These bears aren't just intelligent, they're evolving, guided by something that was set in motion thousands of years ago. The mother bear suddenly growled, low and warning. She moved to stand between Bennett and Ethan, her massive body a living barrier. Bennett didn't flinch. See how she protects him. She recognizes what he is, what you both are. What exactly are you saying we are? Savannah demanded, finding her voice despite her growing fear. The next step, came a new voice from the passage. Connor Adams entered the chamber, But he wasn't the same nervous scientist from earlier. He moved with purpose, authority, his eyes sharp and knowing. "I apologize for the deception, Miss Reed. I'm not exactly who I claimed to be." "Let me guess," Michael said bitterly. "Another government agent?" "No," Connor replied. "I represent an entirely different interest." He turned to Bennett. "Your department has overstepped its authority here, Agent. This activation site falls under Protocol 17 of the Concordance. You know the rules." Bennett's jaw tightened. "This is a national security matter. Protocol 17 was invalidated after the Vancouver incident. Your government doesn't have the authority to invalidate interspecies protocols," Connor countered. "The Concordance was established precisely to prevent unilateral actions in cases of natural activation." Savannah looked between the two men, confusion and fear warring within her. "Will somebody please tell me what's happening? What does all this have to do with my son?" Connor turned to her, his expression softening. "Ms. Reed, what you're seeing on these walls is a genetic directive implanted by visitors to this planet approximately 30,000 years ago. They seeded certain species, including humans, with dormant genetic sequences designed to activate in stages, guiding our evolution toward heightened consciousness and interspecies communication." "You're talking about aliens," Michael said flatly. "I'm talking about ancestors," Connor corrected. "Beings who shared more with us than we've been permitted to remember." He gestured to the wall markings. "These are instructions, Miss Reed. A roadmap for the next phase of coevolution between humans and the species we share this planet with." "And Ethan?" Savannah pressed, holding her son tighter. "Ethan appears to be what we call a nexus child, a fully activated human capable of bridging communication between species. He can understand these bears because the same genetic sequences have activated in both lineages." Connor looked at the boy with genuine wonder. "He is extraordinarily rare and precious." "He's a security concern," Bennett interjected. "Unregulated interspecies communication could destabilize established power structures and create unpredictable social outcomes." "You mean it would threaten human dominance over other species?" Jessica translated, disgust evident in her voice. "God forbid animals could actually tell us what they think of how we've treated them." The tension in the chamber was broken by Ethan's small voice. "Someone else is coming." All eyes turned to him. Bennett immediately signaled his agents to ready their weapons. "Who, Ethan?" "Who's coming?" The boy didn't answer directly. Instead, he placed his hand against the cave wall beside one of the glowing symbols. The blue-green light spread from that point, flowing across the markings like water finding new channels. Soon the entire wall was illuminated, casting the chamber in an ethereal glow. "They never left," Ethan said, his voice oddly mature. "They've been waiting for us to remember." The glowing patterns on the wall began to shift and move, rearranging themselves into new configurations. A low humming filled the air, more felt than heard, vibrating through their bodies. "This is it," Connor whispered reverently. "Activation sequence." "Shut it down," Bennett ordered his team. "Use the EMP if necessary." "You can't shut this down," Connor said sharply. "This isn't technology as you understand it. This is genetic memory expressing itself through quantum entanglement. Interfere, and you risk damaging both the boy and the bears permanently." As the adults argued, Savannah noticed that both Ethan and the bears had gone completely still, their eyes fixed on the glowing wall. Spirit moved to press his body against Ethan's legs, while the mother bear remained protectively close, her eyes reflecting the strange light. Then Savannah felt it. A gentle tug in her mind, like someone taking her hand in the dark. Without understanding how, she knew it was Ethan reaching for her, inviting her to see what he was seeing. She surrendered to the connection, and suddenly the cave walls fell away. She was standing with Ethan in a vast space filled with stars, but not the night sky as she knew it. These stars formed patterns she had never seen, constellations unknown to Earth. "This is where they came from, Mommy," Ethan's voice echoed in her mind. A long time ago, when the world was cold and many animals were dying, they came to help. Images flashed through her consciousness. Tall beings of light working with primitive humans and animals, adjusting, enhancing, implanting something precious within selected bloodlines. A gift meant to unfold over millennia, guiding separate species toward a shared destiny. "They couldn't stay," Ethan continued, "but they left these memories inside us. Inside the bears and wolves and dolphins and some people too, so that when it was time, we would remember how to talk to each other again." "Why now?" Savannah asked silently, marveling at this new way of communicating with her son. "Because the earth is crying, Mommy. The animals are disappearing. We've forgotten how to listen to each other. We need to remember before it's too late." The vision shifted, showing her glimpses of a possible future. Humans and animals working in conscious partnership to heal the damaged planet. Their combined awareness creating solutions impossible for humans alone to discover. She saw Ethan as a young man, standing at the center of a diverse group of people, each connected to different species, forming a network of understanding that spanned the globe. But she also saw another possibility: Ethan in a sterile facility, subject to endless tests, his gift twisted into a tool for control rather than connection. The bears in cages, their intelligence exploited, their lineage corrupted. "They want to take us away." Ethan's mental voice trembled. The man with the badge. He doesn't understand what this is for. Savannah felt a fierce protective rage surge through her. "I won't let them take you, either of you." With effort, she pulled herself back to the physical world. The cave rematerialized around her, but she could still feel the connection to Ethan, to the bears, and now to something larger. A network of awareness that had always been present but that she had never before been able to perceive. She saw the others as if for the first time. Jessica and Michael stood transfixed by the glowing wall, but they weren't experiencing what she and Ethan were. Connor watched with knowing anticipation, and Bennett and his team were preparing some kind of device, their intentions clear in the grim set of their faces. "Stop," Savannah commanded, her voice carrying an authority that surprised even her. "You have no idea what you're interfering with." Bennett paused, studying her with new interest. "So, it's activating in you too. Fascinating." He adjusted a setting on the device, all the more reason to continue with protocol containment. "Jacob?" Agent Morgan said suddenly, her voice changed. She was staring at the glowing wall, her weapon hanging forgotten at her side. "Jacob, I can hear them." Bennett turned to his partner in alarm. "Lily, hear who?" "All of them. The bears, the wolves in the North Valley, the eagles nesting on the ridge." Morgan's eyes were wide with wonder. "It's beautiful, Jacob. It's what we've been missing all this time." "She's receptive," Connor observed. "A latent carrier activated by proximity to the Nexus." He looked at Bennett almost pityingly. "This is bigger than your agency, Agent Bennett. Bigger than national security or government protocols. This is the activation of the next phase of planetary consciousness." "It's a security breach is what it is," Bennett snapped, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. He looked around at his team, noticing how they too seemed affected by the strange energy filling the cave. One agent had actually sat down, tears streaming down his face as he stared at the mother bear with an expression of profound recognition. "Jacob," Morgan said softly, "you need to listen. Please, just open your mind and listen." For a moment, it seemed Bennett might do just that. Something flickered across his face, longing, perhaps, or a distant memory of connection long suppressed. But then his training reasserted itself. He raised the device. "Final warning. Stand away from the activation site and surrender the boy and the bears to federal custody." The mother bear growled, a rumbling sound that vibrated through the stone beneath their feet. Spirit pressed closer to Ethan, who stood calmly beside his mother, no trace of fear in his young face. "No," Savannah said simply. "We will not." "Then you leave me no choice." Bennett's finger moved toward the device's trigger. Before he could activate it, a new sound filled the cave, the beating of helicopter rotors directly overhead. Dust and small stones shook loose from the ceiling as the vibrations intensified. Logan's voice echoed down the passage. "Bennett, federal backup has arrived. You need to stand down immediately." Bennett hesitated, confusion crossing his face. "I didn't call for backup." A blast of static came from his radio, followed by an authoritative voice. "Agent Bennett, this is Director Haley Dawson. Your operation has been terminated by direct presidential order. The interspecies communication activation falls under civilian oversight, according to the 2018 revision of Protocol 17. Stand down and surrender all equipment." Bennett's face drained of color. "Director Dawson, but you're your superior agent, and currently very disappointed in your attempt to circumvent established protocols." The voice softened slightly. "The boy is not a threat, Jacob. None of them are. They're the bridge we've been waiting for." The glow from the wall suddenly intensified, concentrating into a beam that shot toward the ceiling fissure. Outside, the helicopter hovering above the cave was illuminated by the light, its silhouette visible through the narrow opening. "It's starting," Connor said, his voice hushed with reverence. "The beacon has been activated." "What beacon?" Michael asked, finally finding his voice again. "A signal to others carrying the activation gene, calling them home." Connor smiled at Savannah and Ethan. "You're not alone. There are others like you all over the world. Humans who have maintained the connection, who can communicate with certain species. But they've been isolated, afraid, often not understanding their own abilities. Now they'll begin to find each other." The mother bear approached Ethan and gently nudged him with her nose. The boy wrapped his arms around her massive head in a gesture of absolute trust and affection. "Spirit says this is just the beginning," Ethan announced to the room. "We have lots of work to do." He looked at Bennett without fear or anger, only a child's simple compassion. "Even for people who don't understand yet." Bennett slowly lowered his device, a man seeing the foundations of his reality crumble before his eyes. "What happens now?" he asked, addressing no one in particular. It was Logan who answered, entering the chamber with a confident stride. Behind him came a striking woman in civilian clothes, presumably Director Dawson. "Now," Logan said, "we learn to listen to more than just human voices when deciding the fate of this planet." As if in confirmation, the light from the wall pulsed once more, then gradually dimmed to a soft glow that remained even as the shaft of sunlight moved away. The mother bear and spirit returned to Ethan's side, forming a tableau that bridged millions of years of separated evolution. Savannah knelt beside her son, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. The enormity of what was happening, what would continue to happen, threatened to overwhelm her. But through her new connection to Ethan, she felt his absolute certainty, his innocent acceptance of the extraordinary role he had been born to play. "Are you scared, sweetie?" she whispered. Ethan shook his head, his eyes bright with excitement and purpose beyond his years. "No, Mommy, I'm not scared. Spirit and I have important things to do." He looked up at her with complete confidence. "And you're going to help us?" You can hear them too now, can't you? Savannah nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth she could no longer deny. Somewhere deep in her genetic memory, a door had opened. Through it came whispers and impressions, the complex emotions of the bears beside her. Yes, but also fainter signals from the wider forest, the watchful awareness of owls, the darting consciousness of squirrels, the ancient patience of the trees themselves. "Yes," she said softly, "I can hear them." Director Dawson approached them, her expression both professional and deeply moved. "Ms. Reed, my name is Haley Dawson. I represent an international oversight committee established to monitor and protect activation events like this one." She glanced at Connor, who nodded in confirmation. "We've been waiting a long time for someone like Ethan, a fully manifested nexus capable of accelerating the awakening." "You talk like you've seen this before," Michael said, his journalist's instincts cutting through his awe. "Partial activations, yes," Dawson confirmed. "Small-scale communication events between humans and specific species. Dolphins in New Zealand, wolves in Canada, elephants in Kenya, but nothing this complete, and never with a species as evolutionarily distant from humans as bears." She looked at Ethan with undisguised wonder. "Your son is unique, Ms. Reed, and incredibly important." "Important to whom?" Savannah asked, protective instincts still on high alert despite the apparent change in circumstances. "To all of us, to the future of life on this planet." Dawson gestured to the glowing symbols on the wall. "What you're seeing here is not just history, but instruction. A method for re-establishing conscious communication between species that has been dormant in our DNA for millennia. It was placed there to activate at precisely the moment when our planet faced its greatest crisis of biodiversity and climate. By aliens," Michael said, still processing this reality. "By ancestors," Connor and Dawson corrected simultaneously. Jessica had been quiet, methodically documenting the wall markings with her tablet. Now she looked up, her scientific mind racing ahead. "The implications for conservation are staggering. If we could actually communicate with endangered species, understand their needs directly instead of guessing." "It goes beyond conservation," Dawson said. "Imagine collaborative problem-solving that includes the perspective of multiple species, each with their own unique way of perceiving and interacting with the world." Bennett, who had been standing silently to the side, finally spoke. "And the security implications? The economic disruption? Have you considered what happens to our food systems, our resource extraction industries, when animals can effectively advocate for themselves through human intermediaries?" "We have, actually," Dawson replied evenly. "That's precisely why this activation has been guided and monitored for decades. The transition will be gradual, carefully managed to minimize societal disruption while maximizing the benefits of interspecies collaboration." The mother bear huffed suddenly, drawing everyone's attention. She looked directly at Bennett, then at Ethan. The boy nodded, as if responding to a spoken question. "Spirit's mom says you're afraid because you can't hear them," Ethan translated. "But that's okay. Some people will listen and some people won't. That's why I'm here, to help everybody understand each other." The simple wisdom of the child's statement hung in the air, humbling the adults regardless of their position on what was unfolding. Director Dawson smiled. "Well said. she turned to Savannah. "Miss Reed, I know this is overwhelming, but we would like to offer you and Ethan protection and support as you navigate this new reality, not in a facility," she added quickly, seeing Savannah's expression, "but here, in your home, with appropriate resources and training." "And the bears?" Savannah asked. "They are as much a part of this as Ethan is. Their territory will be protected, their lineage studied but not interfered with." Dawson glanced at Bennett. "Agent Bennett's team will be reassigned. This operation now falls under civilian oversight." Bennett didn't protest, though his expression remained troubled. "I hope you know what you're doing, Director." "So do I, Jacob," she replied with unexpected gentleness. "So do I." As the tension in the cave gradually dissipated, Ethan yawned widely, the events of the morning finally catching up with his small body. Spirit also seemed tired, curling up at his feet. "I think that's our cue to head back," Savannah said, lifting her drowsy son into her arms. "This has been a lot." "Of course," Dawson nodded. "We'll talk more after you've had time to rest." As they prepared to leave the cave, Ethan lifted his head from Savannah's shoulder. "Spirit wants to come with us," he murmured sleepily. "Just for today." The mother bear huffed what sounded remarkably like agreement. She nuzzled her cub once, then stepped back, her intelligent eyes meeting Savannah's in that strange moment of cross-species maternal understanding that had started this extraordinary journey. "Is that safe?" Michael asked. "For whom?" Jessica countered with a small smile. "The bear or us?" Savannah found herself nodding. "Yes, Spirit can come, just for today." As they emerged from the cave into the afternoon sunlight, Savannah, carrying Ethan and Spirit trotting happily at their heels, something shifted in her perception of the world around them. The forest was no longer merely scenery, but a community of conscious beings, each with their own purpose, their own awareness, their own story to tell. And somehow, her ordinary little boy had become the translator for all these voices, the bridge between human understanding and the vast, ancient wisdom of the non-human world. What that would mean for their future, for the future of their small mountain community, or even for the world at large, she couldn't begin to imagine. But as Ethan snuggled against her, one hand reaching down instinctively to touch Spirit's fur, she felt something she hadn't expected to feel after all the fear and confusion of the day. Hope. Hope for a world where the divisions between species might begin to heal. Hope for a future where her son's extraordinary gift could help guide humanity toward a more compassionate and integrated relationship with the planet they shared with so many other forms of intelligence. And as they walked through the dappled forest light toward home, other animals emerged cautiously to watch their passing. Deer lifting their heads from browsing, birds falling silent on their branches, a fox pausing in its hunt, all sensing that something fundamental had changed in the ancient relationship between humans and the natural world. The wall in the cave continued to glow softly long after they had gone, its light a beacon calling to others of Ethan's kind scattered across the globe, other Nexus children beginning to awaken to their heritage and purpose. The signal spread, invisible to most, but unmistakable to those carrying the activation gene. In a research facility in Japan, a young girl suddenly understood the complex song of the dolphins she had been studying. In the Amazon rainforest, an indigenous shaman felt his lifelong connection to the jungle consciousness sharpen into clear, two-way communication. On the African savanna, an elderly conservationist woke from a dream of talking with elephants to find a matriarch and her herd waiting expectantly outside his tent. The remembering had begun, and nothing would ever be the same,